4th and the 14th Amendment. And it says, and in inference with the right to be left alone, to live one's life as one chooses, free from assault, intrusion, or invasion, except as they can be justified by the clear needs of the community under government of laws. So in other words, as long as you are not actually somebody who is a menace to the community at large, and there is no probable cause for the government to issue a warrant to go and kind of infringe in your privacy, then you do have that right of privacy, right? And again, they cannot invade it unless there is probable cause. And these are protections that all here in the U.S. have under both the 4th and the 14th Amendment. Everybody got their notes on that one? All right, so what are some of the ways in which somebody's privacy can be invaded? Think about you as a personal person, or, what would be a way that privacy could be invaded?
The government can read your texts and listen to your phone calls.
Okay, so going through to your social media, going through your texts, tapping your phones, whatnot. But can only the government invade your privacy? Can other individuals also invade your privacy, right? So let's kind of think about like individual to individual or our organization, invading an employer's privacy. Can you think of any other way? Let's look at some. Yes.
Couldn't you say, like, if you're going for an interview and an employer asks for a personal question, that's invasion of privacy? If it's like something that you have, it's like on Facebook, and they like search you up and saw it. And they're like,
Could that be considered invasion of privacy?
If it's open to the public and anyone can see it, no.
But if it's an employer, if it's like an interview, it could be, they can ask personal questions.
Well, they're not supposed to ask personal questions, but he's right about like if the information was gathered from public sources, something that is public, then it wouldn't be invasion of privacy as such, right? Because that's one of the elements that needs to be proven, that the information wasn't already available to the public for a case for invasion of privacy to hold. Yes.
So I got a question. Say you like put a wire on somebody or plant something like that to listen to their conversation without them knowing, without their approval. That would be invasion of privacy.
That would be invasion of privacy and very much illegal. So and as we're gonna see, invasion of privacy in some states, to that degree, can be actually considered a felony. So it's not like a slap on the wrist type of incident, right? It's a serious incident, right? So let's look at this. Mariah, the one about employers not being able to ask you questions, is that it deals more with Title VII, like equal opportunity of employment. That says that that it's more about discrimination. So when they tell you that employers are not supposed to ask you these personal questions like age or marital status or are you pregnant or planning to become pregnant, etc., it has to do more with that notion of that they couldn't discriminate against you based on that information, and so therefore they shouldn't ask you about it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. There's like, I've had to deal with this a little bit, like, there's a few things you can't ask, but like, we can't have to do with, like you said, age, marital status, like where you live, like,
Yeah.
oh, we're not gonna hire you because you live too far away, it's like, something like
Yeah.
that. So there's limitations, so they can still like gather information, and ask like questions that don't touch that.
And again, the notion is that then the potential candidate can allege that he or she was discriminated against, passed on, and not given the opportunity for the employment because based on those things that they asked.
Which is
right then? Are we good at that?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So ways in which one's privacy can be invaded: unreasonable intrusion on seclusion. You know, just kind of barging on somebody. That's kind of when we actually think more of the government coming into your property, into your house. You know. Appropriation of another's name or likeness. In this case, this is a fancy or a different way of saying what, like, you know, identity theft, or you know, just kind of like using somebody else's name for one's benefit. Unreasonable disclosure of private facts. And then the fourth one is false light intrusion. And we're going to obviously discuss each one of them individually, so you have the chance to see them again. All right, so the first one is unreasonable intrusion on seclusion. We already kind of set up what that one looks like, right? All right. Okay. I have a lot of left-handed people in this class, by the way. Okay. It's an observation.
I wish I was.
And what you do?
Touche.
I'm a left-handed person.
Yay.
All right. So unreasonable intrusion or seclusion is the invasion of one's home or illegally searching someone's belongings or documents. So that notion of invasion of one's homes is pretty much like when we think about law enforcement and how they're not supposed to just come into our places of residency without having a warrant. And again, it's gotta be that probable cause, and they can just not barge into our residence without permission. If they do, they don't have a warrant, then anything that comes out of that is considered inadmissible in court. They cannot use it, and then on top of that, you could actually file a lawsuit against the department or whoever hearing, looking for your searching your home without warrant. And obviously also illegally searching someone's belongings or documents. All of this needs to be, if it is law enforcement doing it, then they have to have again probable cause or some sort of a warrant to do so, or your permission to do so. And then if it is individual or employer individual, kind of they're also kind of playing with fire, or you will play with fire if you are going on through somebody else's documents or personal belongings, because again that's illegal, and you can get in trouble because you can file a lawsuit against you. So any information obtained in that way, again, without the proper probable cause or consent or warrant, then it's going to become inadmissible because it's considered invasion of privacy. Right? What about the next one? Is appropriation? Is the next way in which someone's privacy can be invaded? What is appropriation? What do you think it looks like? Let's discuss. Let's see. Is the unauthorized use of a person's names or likeness for commercial purposes. One note about appropriation is that this protection is important in sports and in the world of sports, because it gives sports figures that control over their own name and fame and that type of deal. It gives them control to the extent that their names and fame can be used for commercial purposes. Right? So appropriation is one of the ones that is that law part of the law that is very relevant in the sport industry. So with this argument being made about how California is actually one of the first states that is moving towards trying to get college athletes to be paid. And they were talking about this very thing in one of the arguments for it. That is like, well, these athletes, especially the star athletes, they are used in the marketing campaigns and so on and so forth. They're bringing in a lot of revenue because their name and their status is being exploited, and yet they're not getting anything out of their name being used to the extent that it is. So, appropriation. Questions, comments, or stories about appropriation? Something that you may know about it? In the world of sports, something that you might have heard? Your thoughts, personal thoughts about it? Is that because it's Monday? Anyway, all right. Let's go back to the next one. The next way in which someone's privacy can be invaded is unreasonable disclosure of private facts. Two issues the court will address when looking at this type of suit. So if you bring a lawsuit claiming that somebody has unreasonably disclosed private facts about you, before they can proceed with the case, they will look into whether the disclosed information was truly private or public. And this is what we're alluding to earlier, right? They're gonna say, was it something that was already out there in the virtual world, in social media that everybody had access to, so it wasn't really that private, right? Or was it something that you actually kept in your files at home, in your office, and somebody got a hold on and they made it public? That's two different scenarios there, right? And then the second issue that the court will look into is whether the disclosed information is highly offensive to the ordinary person. Whether the disclosed information is highly offensive to an ordinary person. One more time. Whether the disclosed information is highly offensive to an ordinary person. That will be the second issue that the court will address when they look into this type of suits, right? So pretty much, was it public already or not? And that information that was disclosed would actually be offensive to the ordinary person, to the average person, right? I don't know, you cannot claim, will be something bogus that you claim, I didn't want that to be known, right? I don't know. I don't know, that you used to work at McDonald's, let's put it that way, right? And then somebody, 10 years later, somebody disclosed that, and then the court is gonna look, would that be highly offensive to the ordinary person, right? I don't know. That's kind of funny example that came to mind, but probably not the best one, but just wanted to let you know what it would look like, right? That'd be relative. Anybody can come up with a better example of mine? All right. Then we have false light intrusion. What does that one mean? False light intrusion. What do you think it means? False light intrusion. What do you think it means? Let's start the conversation going, and then we kind of figure out if you guys were right or wrong. That's how it works. Should be. Anyway, let's move on with it. Is the invasion of privacy that occurs when publicity places the plaintiff in a false light in the public eye? So this is saying us that because of some sort of publicity, but it's kind of that bad publicity, and then somebody gets drawn into the spotlight because of it. So you kind of were driven into this spotlight, but it just so happened that the publicity is false. It's not really like you're being the target of this interest based on something that is really like negative, if you will, right? So when bringing a lawsuit based on this false light intrusion premise, the plaintiff must show that the published information was false and that the person who made this information public knew that it was false. Right? So the disclosure was done by one knowing that the information was false. everybody good with what that one looks like and what the elements are? Well, the elements are right there, but mostly kind of understanding what it is. Everybody understands that? That is, people are drawn into the public eye based on something negative, a negative comment, right? About your character, about who you are, about something that you did. All of a sudden you are, on the spotlight, and that's not a good thing when it is because of something negative, right? Questions, comments so far? About invasion of privacy, there are 4 ways of it that we discussed. We went through each one of them. Any questions about what we talked about so far? All right. So the next intentional tort is that breach of fiduciary duty. Breach of fiduciary duty. What is fiduciary duty? Fiduciary. That's kind of an interesting word. Fiduciary duty. What is it? You were gonna say? So don't look at me. All right. Fiduciary duty. About what?
Obligations?
Obligation. Can you elaborate?
That you're required to do, which you owe somebody.
Yeah, so it's kind of a certain duty obligations that you have, and we're gonna, okay, that's a pretty good way to start it. So a fiduciary relationship is one involving one person in a position of trust who undertakes to act for the benefit of another. And this person that is in that position of trust is not only in the position of trust, but is also believed to be to have high levels of expertise in a matter, right? So that's one of the reasons why it's in a position of trust. This person is trusted because of the knowledge that he or she possesses in a given, situation or topic, right? So an example of the fiduciary relationship is that lawyer-client. Again, the lawyer is in that position of trust and expertise, right? That person is supposed to know the law really well and whatnot. And so the client, is placing all that trust. The notion is that the lawyer is going to do everything possible in their power, keeping the interest of the client at heart, right? That's where the forefront. Can you come up with another example of fiduciary duty?
What about like, you per se?
I was thinking like financial numbers or something like that.
And that's one of the ones that we kind of hear a lot about, right? Somebody breaking that fiduciary trust or that fiduciary duty, right? It's kind of like a stockbroker and the person investing or kind of investing for your retirement and whatnot, right? So there's that fiduciary duty to do the best possible they can to kind of make sure that those people don't pretty much lose all their money, right? Yes.
Would coach and play everyone or not?
Yes, he would be, coach and athlete would be one of them. Again, the person is in a position of trust and expertise. I think I saw, Paris, you were gonna say?
Yeah, what about like athlete agents? Those were more fun.
That's another one. That's very good, right? The athlete is placing that trust that the agent is gonna is gonna act for the benefits of the athlete, right? It's not in there to try to steal or try to kind of do kind of better his own career or her own career as an agent, but instead it's there for to make the life of the athlete better. Mariah?
It's a hit.
Oh, he got it. Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Got it. All right. So lawyer-client, parent-child is actually one relationship that is considered to be fiduciary. And we can see that, right? That's what we always say that parents know best in one relationships, right? And they are called upon to act in the best interest of the child, what they're raising, right? The athlete coach is one of the ones that I have, and the professional athlete agent is another one. So those are some of those fiduciary relationships. And especially the person of trust breaks it, which is pretty much the person that is in the position to break it, then they can be held liable for that. All right, the next intentional tort is called tortious interference with contract. Tortious interference with contract. Oh, the law in the Latin things. Tortious interference with contract. And this involves the intentional inducement of another to breach one's contract's obligations. This involves the intentional inducement of another to breach one's contractual obligation. So this is like saying pretty much that you know that these two parties have a contract going on, and then for whatever motivation, you go to one of the parties and pretty much coercing or nudging or suggest or advises or pretty much make them breach that contract or parts of the contract that they have with that other person, right? Does that make any sense? So you pretty much have a third party making a person break a contract that they have. 3 elements: the contract must be valid, enforceable contract between those two parties. So there has to be a contract between the two parties, right? That you are kind of a virgin into interfering with. Valid, enforceable contract must exist between two parties. That's the first element there. The second element is that the defendant must have known of the contract's existence. So you kind of, your actions, you went and kind of coerced this person to break the contract, knowing about the contract existence, right? Knowing that those people were under contract for somebody else. And then their actions must have been, also of purpose. So the defendant must have knowingly induced either of the two parties from full performance of the contract. So again, your action must have been of purpose, well knowing that what you were doing was that, trying to make that person to break their end of the agreement of that contract. That's number 3 right there. And that shouldn't read much, but it should have read must. Just in case that you were like, oh, you forgot to spell. So the defendant must have not only induced either one of these parties from full performance of the contract. Alright? Can you think of a scenario or an example in which a party would do this, not only make somebody breach a contract they have with somebody else? Yes.
This might be silly, but Antonio Brown, the contract that he had and how he intentionally broke it so he could go play for the Patriots.
All right. So he broke that contract of the. But he actually did. I don't think that one kind of would go as an interference because he was one of the parties in the contract, right? And here this particular piece that we're talking about is when a third party comes in and makes the person break the contract, right? Does that make any sense? Say that again? It's the agent. The agent who could have been accused of this particular. Oh, the agent did?
I'm just saying, like.
Oh no, if the agent would have, then he would have. That would have been a good example of what we're talking about here, because then it would have been a third party that induced AB to breach that contract that they have with the team, right? So the third party, it has to be a third party, pretty much interference in two people's affair, if you will, or relationship, contract, relationship.
Would that be like tampering in the NBA when another team starts talking to a player before it's free agency?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And that kind of doing everything they can, inducing and kind of putting that in their head and talking it over. Yeah, you can kind of get out of it right now, and kind of So that would be it. It's a third party. Here, the important thing is that a third party comes into two parties' contract and makes one of them break it.
I know in the NCAA, like in your senior year until you graduate, you're not allowed to talk to an agent or another thing. And I know that they told us that, like, because some people were already talking, like, because the season's over, they're looking for professional contracts. I know that they told us about this, and it was like, but it's kind of hard to prove, like, like,
Yeah.
that's what they were saying, like, you will get your, like, you will lose your eligibility and you won't graduate.
Yeah.
But then it's like, how do you prove it? Because they were saying it's hard to prove, like, you can't actually, like, go forth against, like, these agents that, like,
Yeah.
message you and whatever.
Yeah, and that's true. In some parts of the law is try to prove certain things, that, especially some of the things that we've spoken about, is hard to prove, and that they really want to enforce and kind of go and probably conduct sting operations, and somebody kind of helps them kind of set up somebody else that they kind of know is doing this on a regular basis. So they say, okay, we need to address this. I suppose that in a way, kind of like what happened with the college scandal, right? That somebody who spoke, and then they kind of because it was really hard to prove unless that guy actually went and wore a microphone and kind of had a conversation with that. Otherwise, how do you prove something like that? Right? It would have been kind of the same.
Yeah, because that was like a whole thing that I didn't do up with my freshman year of college, because people just message you and it's just like, they were just like, like you can't have any contact, you can't even like, so it was just like you're not, like, as an athlete, you're not trying to do it, but they're the ones doing it.
They're trying to do it. And remember, then the liability will be on them because you have a contract with the NCAA or with the
Yeah.
institution, and they're trying to make you break that contract by recruiting you or campaigning you or whatever you want to call it. So here they will be the ones accused of this tortious interference with the contract, right? They will be the ones accused of that. They kind of came to you and they were the ones who made you break that contract that you had with the institution. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Spencer, you good?
Mhm.
You got it? Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else about that? All right. The next one, the next intentional tort that we have is intentional infliction of emotional distress. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. So intentional infliction of emotional distress. IIED is relatively recent in terms of the tort, in claims for tort, intentional torts. And this is pretty much conduct that results in extreme emotional distress and is meant to protect a person's emotional tranquility. What do you think this looks like a scenario in which somebody can claim this intentional infliction of emotional distress? Like reading the definition of it, what do you think it takes to prove a claim of this?
Maybe like a breakdown, like a player having a breakdown.
Have a breakdown.
Probably monetary damages, like they missed a season or a game.
All right. Okay, but remember that. Yeah, but remember that. So it wouldn't be actual monetary damages, right? Because in the title we have emotional distress. So it's more that emotional damage. That a good way to put it, emotional damage, or the emotional injury. And then the other part of the title that kind of gives away some of the things that needs to be proven is that intentional piece, right? So intentional part of it. So you have to do something intentional that caused somebody to undergo this emotional distress, right? Let's see if how right I am. So in order to prove a claim, the plaintiff, so the person bringing the claim, must demonstrate that the defendant acted intentionally or with reckless disregard of the probability of causing emotional distress. Right? So whatever he or she did it with intention, or even if she knew what the outcome would be, he or she didn't care at all. Right? So those are the first two things that need to be proven. And then the second one is that the defendant's actions must have been extreme and outrageous. And the third one is is the action must have caused severe emotional distress. The action must have caused severe emotional distress. The action must have caused severe emotional distress. And I can repeat it a few more times if you need to. The action must have caused severe emotional distress. So those are the three issues that the court will look into to determine if this is an actual case for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Right? Yes.
How new is this? Like, what kind of cases that you're reading up about?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's really interesting. How new it is, it's relatively new. Again, it's kind of when I think about it, I think more like also on the side of the defamation side that we just spoke about. Remember that we talked about some of the usual categories of defamation. When somebody says, oh, that person is unchaste, is that what we said? Unchaste, or have a loathsome disease, or, you know, when you kind of make certain outrageous allegations on somebody, and then they go through the whole thing, kind of defending themselves, then after a while, that probably is going to weigh on somebody's emotional well-being, right? To have probably, depending on who you are, to have probably the whole public kind of questioning either your character or who you are or what you're all about, that type of thing, right? That can be something that can cause emotional distress to an individual. Right? So defamation that's probably one side of it. So you obviously might sue somebody for defamation, go through the whole system, and they come back and say, well, but I also want to make sure that I get him or that I also get something because this is causing me this emotional distress. And I suppose that is because in the law we have always been too quick, okay, let's see what the actual broken neck or broken leg or, you know, that's kind of how we also kind of want to go on. So the law has now said people can also be affected emotionally, and that is important to address that.
I just remembered I listened to this really interesting podcast where it was really sad. This